So, it looks like I've already deviated from the video topic schedule in my community posts. This is definitely a good sign for future endeavors. I regret nothing. Hello everyone, my name's ALoubell. To be fair, I said the schedule was subject to change at my discretion. And I was inspired to talk about this, so here it is. My Hero Academia is an anime that I greatly enjoy. It's super well written and super well animated with a myriad of likable characters. Something also worth praising is how the author, Kohei Horikoshi, is able to balance and develop so many heroes. Unlike some other popular stories out there. As a quick explanation, My Hero Academia takes place in a world where 80% of people are born with a power known as a quirk. Quirks can range from anything really, to the super cliche superpowers to more unique ones. Some people use their powers for evil and are called villains. To combat these villains, some individuals with strong quirks and skills rise up against them in order to keep the peace. These are the heroes. The story of My Hero Academia is about a teenage boy named Izuku Midoriya who strives to walk the path of the symbol of peace, All Might, and become a hero that can save people with a smile. This video will contain spoilers for My Hero Academia, so tread carefully if you don't want to be spoiled. Also, keep in mind that I am only keeping up with the English dub of the anime, so my knowledge of things goes up to a little more than halfway through season 6, so please no manga spoilers in the comments. Thank you! During the early seasons of the show, my favorite character was All Might. Contrary to my initial guess that he would be some arrogant jerk hero that Izuku would learn isn't worth his time, All Might is actually a very charismatic and kind guy who strives to do what is best. He fights to keep the peace and keep people smiling. He's practically put the burden of society on his shoulders and his only desire is to give others hope. Plus, he has a fun personality and is just a joy to see on screen. More recently though, my favorite character has shifted to the number 2 turned number 1 hero, Endeavor. This comes at zero surprise to anyone familiar with my channel, but I kind of have a thing for reformed villains.
But Aloe, Endeavor isn't a villain, and he never was. He's literally one of the best heroes.
Statistically, that is true, and his contributions to society also show that he's nothing but heroic. But to his family, he may as well have been seen as a villain. So villain adjacent, I'm here for some juicy redemption. And depending on how well Horikoshi sticks the landing with Endeavor's character development, he could beat out Vegeta as my favorite anime character. So I'm watching closely, Horikoshi. Don't mess it up. Anyway, why is Endeavor so great? Well, it stems from why he in fact isn't. But before we get into that, if you're enjoying this video, then spark a flame for this channel by hitting the like button and subscribe for more reviews, rants, and rewrites. Follow me on my socials in the description, and be sure to join our community Discord, the Bell Tower, link also in the description. If you're still watching at this point, put a fire emoji in the comments. Thank you! So, let's call a spade a spade. Endeavor was an abuser and a generally awful person to his family. But I'm jumping ahead of myself. Who is Endeavor? Endeavor is Enji Todoroki, the previous number 2 hero and the current number 1 hero in Japan. His quirk is Hellflame, which basically means that he has super strong fire powers. He's a super serious, takes no nonsense type of dude who would go to extremes to make it to the top. As a hero, he's super efficient in rescuing and taking out villains, and he owns his own hero agency where he employs many sidekicks. Shout out to Burnin, who is my favorite of his sidekicks, not only because of her design, but she's voiced by Lisa Ortiz, who voiced Lena Inverse from the Slayers anime, a favorite of mine, and my favorite version of Amy Rose in Sonic X. Yes, really. Anyway, Endeavor's dream has always been to surpass All Might as the number 1 hero. Not so much for the title, but to actually be better than All Might, which is what led to him to do morally horrible things. We'll touch on that soon. Endeavor has a wife named Rei and 4 children, Toya, Fuyumi, Natsuo, and Shoto. The Todoroki family has a lot of angst and drama associated with them, which makes their story super engaging for the audience. So, what did Endeavor do? Well, this must first begin with an explanation. You see, quirks are basically an extension of a person's physical energy and strength, so it's quite easy for someone's quirk to backfire. Get it? Backfire? Because it's Endeavor? Anyway, it's easy for someone's quirk to not 100% be compatible with their bodies, even if their bodies were formed specifically for that quirk. Endeavor is super strong and can stand inhumanly hot temperatures. However, his body has a limit for how much heat he can take, which is a weakness for him since that means he can't use his power for as long as or as much as he would like. In his eyes, this limitation was partially what was keeping him from becoming number 1 organically. So, since he's unable to fix the problem in himself, he decided to do something so that his future children wouldn't have that same issue. And this is where the messy part comes from. Endeavor searched for a woman who would have a quirk that, when mixed with his genetically, would produce a child that couldn't overheat like he could. Enter Ray, who has an ice quirk. Endeavor basically purchased Ray from her family so that he could make her his wife. Granted, Ray could have turned down his proposal, but to financially help her family, she agreed. So, to recap, Endeavor married Ray so that their future child could have both an ice quirk and a fire quirk at the same time. And to keep tabs of things, at this point in the story, Endeavor is still a reasonably nice and respectful person. Ambitious, but pretty decent and respectful. Heck, he and Ray even seem to enjoy each other's company for a while, and he comes to learn her likes and dislikes. And as far as the future children plan goes, well, genetics doesn't always give us exactly what we predicted. Endeavor and Ray had 2 kids, Toya first and then Fuyumi not long after. Fuyumi, the second oldest, had only an ice quirk. That, plus her lack of enthusiasm to fight or be a hero, meant that Endeavor didn't feel the need to train her. He was okay with her not being a hero because he had his firstborn, Toya. Toya, however, had only a fire quirk, an outrageously strong fire quirk, but no ice whatsoever to cool himself down. At first, Endeavor was okay with this because Toya was strong and he believed in his son's skills. However, we learned that Toya's body was built like his mother's. It was meant for cold temperatures. So while he still had a heat resistance stronger than a normal human's, he couldn't handle his quirk in the same way his dad could. Toya would burn himself constantly whenever he used his quirk. This led to some tension, as Toya still wanted to be a hero, but Endeavor didn't want his son to keep burning himself. More than anything, Toya desperately wanted to spend time with his father and get his attention, but Endeavor was absolutely abhorrent when it came to appropriately showing affection, that the only way he thought he could keep Toya from burning alive was to completely ignore him, as to not encourage the behavior of using his quirk. Yeah. And he left Ray in charge of dealing with Toya because he was too busy with hero stuff. But wait, it starts to get even messier. So, as Toya is continuing to burn himself by using his quirk to impress his dad and slowly going insane because of his dad not encouraging him anymore, Endeavor, well, it's implied that he forced Ray to have another baby with him in order to get that quote-unquote perfect child. Let's also keep in mind that Ray's mental health is also starting to decline because of what's going on with her son, as well as Endeavor's increasing lack of humanity and empathy. So, baby number 3, Natsuo, how's it looking? Nope, only an ice quirk like his sister. Let's do a quick check-in on how our family is doing. Endeavor, increasingly frustrated and ironically becoming colder emotionally. Toya, desperate for love and affection and still burning himself. Ray, feeling stressed out and overwhelmed beyond all reason. Fuyumi, just trying to happily exist and not draw attention to the negativity. And Natsuo, he's just a baby. Alright, let's hear it for baby number 4. Ray's not looking too hot? honestly looking a bit dead inside, but you know Endeavor, he wants results, darn it. Enter baby Shoto. Finally, we got ourselves a half-cold, half-hot quirk. Exactly what Endeavor wanted. How are we looking, Toya? What's that? You hate that Endeavor now has a golden child that's not you? And Toya's obviously in pain because all the other kids want to be heroes, and he's being told that he can't when that's all that's been drilled into his head since he was an infant. He's obviously doing just fine. What's that? He tried to fry baby Shoto? Never mind, he's not fine at all. How's Ray looking? Oh, depressed that Toya is still hurting himself and is desperate and tried to kill her youngest baby, and Endeavor is putting the responsibility of Toya onto her. What's that? Endeavor says that Shoto is no longer allowed to be around his siblings? I'm sure that'll end well. Just to recap, again, Ray is miserable, Toya is desperate, and Endeavor is neglecting everyone in his family except for golden child Shoto. And he only ever talks to everyone in a harsh tone, sometimes even yelling if he's upset enough. Skip forward a few years. Only Shoto gets to spend any time with Endeavor, and they mostly only train. Shoto doesn't get to hang out with other kids, not even his siblings, or do fun stuff. I'm actually pretty convinced that Shoto didn't know what fun was until he entered UA, and that's sad. So Shoto is low-key miserable, but doing what his dad says anyway. Toya is still going a bit crazy and just about at his breaking point. Kid still has some hope for his father though, and still wants to impress him, so naturally, he's still secretly training and burning himself. Ray is just existing at this point. How is Ray and Toya's relationship? Not good. Not only does he see the girls in his family as useless, but he super doesn't respect his mom because of her lack of agency in her life. His harsh words then, and even attitude before that, caused Ray to pull back and not give him any attention, as well as it was just too much for her to deal with. When Endeavor discovers that Toya is still training and hurting himself, he blames Ray and harshly accuses her of being useless. These events finally break Ray to the point where she can no longer stand looking at Endeavor's eyes, or anyone who has his eyes, leading her to, in a mental break, throw boiling water on Shoto's face, and then burning him with her ice powers in an attempt to amend the situation. So she gets admitted to a mental institution, and Shoto, super resenting his dad at this point. Toya, well, I don't want to spoil this particular thing, but a big accident happens because of his powers going out of control. This ends up breaking Endeavor. So, what does the big guy do in response to these unfortunate events? Does he repent and realize he's been in the wrong? Goodness no, he doubles down. I mean, okay, deep down he knows what happened to Toya was his fault, but once again, being terrible at showing any level of vulnerability, he just keeps on going with this path to victory. He's also slightly blind too, because he doesn't 100% understand why everything went as badly as it did, but even if he did understand, in his mind, if he's able to get Shoto to become the #1 hero, he thinks that the end justifies the means. So, let's get another status update on everyone. Endeavor is single-minded, frustrated, and harsh. Ray is institutionalized. Toya is... Fuyumi ignores the bad stuff and just wants to focus on the good. Natsuo resents his dad, and Shoto resents his dad. What a lovely and healthy family dynamic. Eventually, some stuff happens later on in the story that leads to Endeavor becoming the #1 hero, but it's not earned in the way that he wanted, so it's a hollow victory. But now he's being forced to ask himself what kind of hero he wants to be and what it means to be a hero. Seeing how All Might inspired people and brought hope and how he's so different from All Might honestly made him think about things. Slowly but surely, Endeavor came to realize just how awful of a human being he was for the past couple decades and the torment he put his family through. He also asks himself if everything he did was honestly worth becoming #1. Looking back, he's burned a lot of bridges, and he realizes that while the world saw him as a hero, His family saw him as a villain. And there was no doubt that if the people found out about his past, they wouldn't consider him a hero either, despite all of the good he had done. Endeavor knew that there was no amount of good he can do to fix everything he had broken. I know I said that I would spoil stuff, but there are just some things I don't want to spoil. Let's just say that his actions lead to some very unfortunate consequences that don't just affect his family. Finally able to see himself as the monster he was, Endeavor feels absolutely horrible and is currently on a path to atone for his sins and make things better not only for the civilians but also for his family, even if it means that he's no longer a part of their lives. He just wants them to be happy and healthy. He doesn't seek forgiveness, only that he can do what's right. So, does Endeavor deserve forgiveness? No, absolutely not. He did terrible things to people who didn't deserve it. However, I do think he should be forgiven regardless.
But ALoubell, he literally ruined people's lives. Abusers don't deserve forgiveness.
I know, but that's precisely why they should be forgiven.
Say what?
Okay, so I know this is a bit repetitive on my part, but I've gone on at length talking about me being a Christian and how important forgiveness is to me since Jesus forgave me for my sins. I discuss it briefly when talking about Chloe from Miraculous Ladybug, and even more so when talking about Starlight Glimmer from My Little Pony. Please watch those videos of mine after you're done with this one, by the way. So I'll try to not stand on the soapbox for too long, but none of us are worthy of forgiveness. And yet God sent his son to die on the cross for us anyway, so that we can be saved from our sins. Even one sin makes us unworthy of the perfection of God. The fact that God forgave the Apostle Paul, who used to be a Christian hunting murderer who got so many Christians killed, means that he'll forgive anyone who is willing to admit that they did bad things and are sincerely trying to change, and who believe in him and actively want him in their lives. Paul went on to do so much good and became one of the best missionaries in all of Christianity's history, and he wouldn't have been able to do any of that if he weren't given the chance. If God is willing to forgive someone like that, then I have no right to not forgive someone. God forgave me, so it's my duty to forgive others as a way to show God that I appreciate what he did for me. As such, Endeavor doesn't deserve to be forgiven, but what's grace if not forgiveness that is not deserved? While I understand Natsuo not forgiving his dad, and I understand fans of My Hero Academia who don't forgive him as well, because again, he was awful, but at this point in my life, it just makes me angry and sad when I see that people are not willing to forgive. Heck, it was because of a reaction to a recent episode of My Hero Academia in which the reactors were saying how Endeavor doesn't deserve forgiveness, even after all that he's done trying to make things right, that inspired me to make this video. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what someone did to you. I mean, ideally it would, but our brains don't work like that. But it does mean allowing you and the other person to start over, and it means that you won't allow that wrong to fester in your mind anymore. It doesn't mean allowing the other person to have their way. It simply means to let go. The idea that one has to earn forgiveness really bothers me. At what point can someone earn forgiveness? That price is solely up to the person who was wronged, and it might be a price that a person can never pay, no matter how hard they try. Depending on the wrong, the price could be something as easy as saying sorry, or as tough as giving up one's life, and even then, it still might not be given. Have you ever been on the receiving end of someone's anger? Have you ever felt what it's like to not be forgiven? To have that guilt laying on your conscience? It's an absolutely terrible feeling, as if you're a prisoner even when you're able to walk free. Your happiness is at someone else's mercy, and it's just the worst. Why on earth would you want to put someone else through that? What happened to the golden rule?
But ALoubell, the other person didn't follow the golden rule when they decided to hurt me.
Okay, yeah, but you can't control what other people do. You can't control their actions. You can only control yours. You can end the cycle of hatred. You have the power and ability to love. It might not be easy, but it's worth fighting for if it'll help make the world at least a bit more bearable. It's easy to hate and be angry, but it takes real strength to forgive and be kind, especially when it's not deserved. And please don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to imply that I'm better than anyone else, so I'm not speaking from my high horse here. No, it's because I messed up and have messed up so many times that I am in need of forgiveness, and I'm grateful that it's been given to me. It's a sense of relief and hope for the future, and naturally, I'm motivated to work harder. I've been on the receiving end of unforgiveness, both for things I deserved and didn't deserve. I've been there for weeks until all was forgiven, and there was a time I wasn't forgiven at all. It's just the worst, and I don't want to put anyone through that. That isn't to say that I don't struggle with being angry with people at times. I have my petty side and my fed up side. I'm still human after all. I have to consciously tell myself to let it go when someone wrongs me and to get my mind off of it. I have to let myself know that I forgive them. It's tough, but it can be done with time and patience. I've seen what resentment can do, even how it can divide a family, and it's so sad to see. It's sad to be involved in, and I just don't want to keep it going. Besides, I guarantee you that if someone is super sorry and determined to change and make things right, then I promise you that they are super aware of the terrible things they've done. They don't need your anger or silence or guilt to remind them. They know. They know. And I promise you that they are already beating themselves up over it and are already having a hard time forgiving themselves. So why, oh why, do you feel the need to perpetuate that torment?
Yeah, well, they deserve to suffer.
Maybe so, but what's the point? I mean, if someone is sorry and already showing that they are willing to do everything it takes to change, then what's the point in making them suffer other than to make you feel better? And on that note, do you actually feel better? Because I don't know about you, but I hate feeling angry with people. It's draining and it just feels bad. I'd rather be at peace. Forgiveness brings peace because, newsflash, forgiveness isn't just about setting the wrongdoer free, it's also about setting you free. Especially in situations where a person either doesn't know that you don't forgive them, either because they don't and won't know you, or for some reason you keep your resentment a secret, or they just don't care. In which case, what's the point in not forgiving them? It won't matter to them either way, and is really only hurting you. At the end of the day, forgiving someone clears your conscience and gets rid of those nasty negative emotions that are basically poisonous. Like, life is hard enough. Why add more complication to it? And what was it that Tony Stark said in Avengers Endgame?
I just want peace. Turns out resentment is corrosive, and I hate it.
But Aloe, what if the person is not sorry at all?
Still forgive them anyway, because again, no need to keep that toxicity inside of you. And it's the right thing to do.
How can you tell if someone is really sorry?
Well, just like how Endeavor told people to watch him, you need to watch what they do. Their behaviors reflect the kind of people they actually are. Only time will be able to tell, honestly. All that being said, I really like Endeavor. I, like many others, didn't like him at first because he just came off as a big bully. It wasn't really a matter of forgiveness or whatever, I just don't like bully characters. But ever since I saw that he was finally looking inward and realizing what he did and how awful it was and consciously trying to change, I knew I was going to like him. Every time he appeared on screen after that, I'd raise the Endeavor flag in my head, cheering him on in his journey of self-improvement and atonement. I found myself liking him and getting more hype with him, even more than my previous favorite All Might, who was still cool by the way. I just like Endeavor more. I love reformed villains, or villain-like people, because they are the perfect allegory for Christianity. People who are all around awful, turning a new leaf and getting a chance to be better and become useful and irreplaceable members of society. Reformed villains are my favorite trope, and my favorite characters are reformed villains. Spoilers for Once Upon a Time and MLP coming up, by the way. Starlight Glimmer, Regina Mills, and Vegeta being good examples. Endeavor may not actually be a villain, but I am here for the same type of character development. What's crazy to me is that people, in real life, have forgiven Vegeta and Regina despite the awful things they've done. They've both killed so many people, and sometimes for selfish or petty reasons, and yet they were given chances and are both beloved good guys now. On some level I understand, considering the context for both. Vegeta is an alien who uses his superpowers to destroy civilizations and planets. Regina is a fairy tale queen and sorceress who used her magical powers along with her influence to ruin lives and destroy people. In a way, their situations seem so far away from our own experiences that we can sort of detach them from our normal sense of morality. Like, none of us have experienced an alien who can turn into a giant ape and who shoots laser beams out of his hands that can destroy planets. And none of us have experienced an evil queen who can shapeshift, brew potions, and shoot fireballs. Plus, we're so used to the evil queen trope that we're kind of desensitized to it. Granted, people were hating on Regina at first regardless of this, and I'm sure she was deemed as unforgivable at some point, and yet here we are, and there she is, being super loved. I'm sure it also helped that she had a super sympathetic backstory that made many of us feel sorry for her. Where I'm at in the story, I don't even know if Endeavor has a sad backstory or not. I'm not sure why he wants to be number one so badly, or if that's simply in his personality. There are things I've heard online, minor spoilery things that may or may not be true, but nothing has been confirmed to me yet. For all I know, he's just super ambitious. Plus, despite living in a superhuman society, Endeavor's actions are severely more looked down upon, probably because what he does feels a lot more real, as many people in our lives experience abuse and neglect. So that might contribute to the amount of hatred he receives from fans of the story. And also, there was never any doubt that Regina and Vegeta were villains. They didn't hide it and even took pride in their villainy at some point. We were supposed to dislike them because they were undoubtedly the bad guys. Whereas Endeavor is, in every other sense, a hero who is looked up to and who has been saving people day after day for years. I guess in some sense, people feel more betrayed and disgusted with Endeavor because he is supposed to be a model citizen who only does good. Hey guys, it's Aloe in the editing process. I forgot to mention that while Natsuo is convinced that he'll never forgive Endeavor, Fuyumi is just trying to keep the peace and is more than willing to have a nice relationship with her dad. Shoto is less resentful than Natsuo, but isn't quite all the way ready to forgive Endeavor yet. He, however, is allowing his father the chance to prove himself as a father. And as for Rei, she is also willing to see the good in her husband and can recognize that Endeavor really does love all of them. He just sucks at being upfront about it and is also going through some stuff. So, Natsuo aside, I'm glad that, for the most part, Endeavor does have a chance at truly having a family once again. Alright, we're almost done here. Back to the main video. In conclusion, Endeavor is complex, for sure, but I love what I'm seeing so far, and I super appreciate everyone else who is rooting for him as well. Watching him has been a roller coaster, but I look forward to what comes next. I really hope that people both in-universe and in real life come to see how awesome he is, and can find it in their hearts to forgive him as well. But what do you guys think? How do you feel about Endeavor? Do you like him? Do you forgive him? Comment below and let's get this conversation started. Once again, no manga spoilers. Thank you! And remember, I'm the artistic ALoubell, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it and subscribe for more reviews, rants, and rewrites. But as for now, that's all there is. There isn't any more.